Hi, I'm here with Nathan, who is from New Birds, but who also is New Birds. Which is it?
It's both. It's both. I think I think I am New Birds. New Birds is me, but I'm in New Birds. It's both.
There you go. It's both. It's
Yeah.
both.
It's
How's
like
experiencing it?
it's like I feel like if Trent Reznor was asked uh who's Nine Inch Nails, he would give a similar answer. It's the same kind of thing.
Cool. All right. So, 2026. What what does New Birds mean in 2026? And how has that changed over the years?
Um, I think in 2026, New Birds is it's like I was going to say it's the end of a long road. It's not. It is a long road, but it's there's been a long road before this, and hopefully a long road ahead of this. Um, so it's like the middle of a long road. Um, and in 2026, New Birds is in the middle of the road with a long way to go.
And like how do you feel about New Birds these days? And because how long has New Birds been going?
Um,
Long time.
there's many different answers to that. I mean, I guess like officially the name New Bird sort of came around in sort of 2011, 2012. When I look back at demos from that time, they start to say New Birds around then. Um, but also New Birds sort of feels um like it's been going for so much longer. Like I can trace it back to the very first band I was in, Acoustic Monks with our mutual friend Dave. Um, like that's kind of New Birds, and that was 1997. Um, I'm still kind of like the songs that Acoustic Monks were doing in 1997. That's kind of the DNA of New Birds. Um, so yeah, long time.
That was a long time. How do you feel about has how you feel about making music, has that changed since 1997? Your attitude to it, the way you approach it emotionally?
I think so. Yeah. Back in 1997, it was very much like it was kind of when I read stories about the Beatles um, making music, they had to kind of play things over and over until it stuck in their minds. Um, I'm sorry, I'm sort of going more technical rather than emotional. Um, and if the song wasn't good enough, then it was lost. Like back in 1997, I didn't really have a great way to record stuff. It was just sort of tape and it was bare bones. And sometimes like I've got tapes of hours and hours of horrible noodling and there's might be a song buried in there. Whereas these days, if I've got a song, it's I go straight to my computer and open up Ableton. So from a technical point of view, um, New Birds is pretty different. Like I love being a technical music making guy. Um, emotionally, it's almost the same, but with age, hopefully comes wisdom. Um, I think I was probably more sort of innocent and naive back then. The naivety of youth going, I'm going to be in a famous band like Oasis or Blur or something. Um, and with 30 years later, um, those expectations have kind of changed a bit, but I think ultimately the love for the music and the love for the band is still there. I'm still the biggest New Birds fan of all time. I'm still obsessed with New Birds. I can sort of look at it from a fan and a person who's in it and is it. Um, I still go back to early demos and go, look at that, that's cool. I still sort of get a smile on my face when those magic moments happen in songwriting and playing with the band. That big grin that comes when it's all clicking.
I'm writing stuff down because there's definitely stuff that I want to follow up on.
Nice.
I'm
What you're
gonna go
doing.
back to this thing you
Yeah.
said about wisdom and age,
Mhm.
because that's something that I think a lot about in my years. Like, have I learned anything? Does it matter if I've learned anything? Like, these are just interesting things to think about, I think. So, like, what what do you think are the biggest things that you have learned in that time about music, but also about yourself through
Um,
music?
I think I think I've learned that like when I was younger, it was all sort of about the audience and the end result, and that was how success was measured. Um, and through age, inevitably that that kind of end point, it has to change. And so success is not so much about audience and record deal and manager. It's more about um, like firstly, like I sort of had to go, does the music connect? Is the music important? Like do I want to put it out or is there an audience for it? And ultimately I had to kind of strip it back and just go, is it meaningful? Does it connect with me? That's the first thing. That's the most important thing. And nothing else really sort of matters apart from that. Um, Whereas that was really different when I was younger. It was more sort of about having, those lofty, ambitious dreams. Um, at times in my naive youth, I may have thought, is this chorus easy for hundreds of people to sing back? Those kind of crazy, lofty dreams. And like some of that came with talking to Royston from Space Hog, who is a guy that my wife set me up with. Um, and it was initially kind of bass playing lessons that it was meant to be, but it sort of evolved into how musicians age and how it all changes. And he really kind of helped me realize that I don't have to freak out so much about the end result. It ultimately has to just be, is the music meaningful? Does it move me? That's kind of the first thing, I guess.
That's nice. I like that. It's like a music, like counseling almost.
Yeah, and sometimes it does feel like that. Like there's something that I was writing recently about the death of my mum, which I've never really been able to successfully put into words. Um, and I was sort of tinkering with that just yesterday, and like that something's working when it moved. Like I could barely get through it because it was so successful, and it was part of kind of counseling and grief, I suppose. Um, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's a big thing to grapple with, right?
Mm. Yeah, and she's been gone for 10 years, so it's not been something that I've been able to touch really. Um, Nicely, something that you might appreciate is that when I was writing it, so it's a whole load of verses. It's kind of like a mantra. And I got to the end, and this thing popped into my head that I wrote back in 2002. You know what I was doing in 2002? I was living in a house with you and Dan in the international language of mime.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and feeling really homesick back then in 2002 in Melbourne, having moved here for a year from England, um, and not having the best relationship with my folks. Um, and I started writing this thing that was sort of musically based a little bit on Cortez the Killer by Neil Young. Um, but also I think there was elements of Manson in there. Manson, the indie band. Uh, and so I was like, would this work as a coda for this song? Like it was just a simple kind of just reaching out to parents who you're maybe not that close with and trying to connect. And I'm sort of, I don't know, trying to see if that works on the end of this song. But that's that's a weird thing to do. That's like a what 2002 to 2026. That's a 24-year gap. Um, if I do manage to get that bit onto the end, I'm not sure.
I like that though. It's like a sort of conversation with your younger self, almost like a collaboration with your younger self in a way, you know,
Yeah,
and the
yeah, it
mindset
is.
back then.
Yeah, and
Powerful, that.
yeah, and such a different kind of feel. Like back then, it was just. I guess it's partly similar. It's like wanting to connect with someone who you're fighting with a lot, and now it's about wanting to connect with that person when they're gone, and it's impossible to do that. Um, so the two things are kind of linked. But yeah, yeah, it's good. It's like a conversation with with that crazy guy who was 21 at the time.
Yeah, that's it's pretty heavy. Some pretty heavy shit that you're grappling with through music. So does is that what New Birds is about then for you? Is it lyrically all in that emotional place? So you mentioned like writing about your mum and like where does it kind of come from lyrically? Yeah, tell us about
Um, yeah, it's mostly heading to the darker kind of things. Like when I was rehearsing with the band last week, and um, we were doing a song. Oh my God, what's it called? My brain. Um, couldn't save us both. Um, and Newbird Chris kind of made a like Newbird Chris is always a very jokey guy. He made a sort of slightly jokey comment about it, and I was like, it's about addiction and my mum. Um, this is just for Newbird's uh, audiences who may not know. These are two different people. I'm a successfully, happily adopted person, um, and so this is not the same mum who passed away 10 years ago. This is my real mum with the addiction problems. Anyway, um, where was I going with that? Oh yeah, and he looked a bit kind of taken aback, and he's like, "God, you're a moody fucker, aren't you?" I was like, "Yeah, well, yeah." It's like for me, the emotion sort of has to come from those kind of places. I find it really hard to write happy songs. There are a few. Like I wrote a really happy song about my son that is just really joyous and punky and fun to play. But I don't know, it doesn't fit that well with new birds these days. It's mostly about tapping into battles with mental health and pain and misery. Like Newbird Chris said, I am a moody fucker.
So I don't know if this question follows on or not, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Because you mentioned Chris and the live. So Chris is in the band New Birds, and so tell us about the live format of New Birds in 2026. Then
Yep. So in 2026, for the first time in Newbird's history, we are like a real band. There's um, no electronics, no. I was going to say tape loops, but that's like an old-fashioned thing to say, which we don't. I've never really done. Loops from my laptop, or backing tracks. So yeah, fully live, which is really fun and really different. And I feel like a part of this whole journey has been um, the elusive search for a drummer. Back in International Language of Mime days, that was a killer for us. Um, Trying to find a drummer and working out what to do if we don't have a drummer. In fact, our first gig as Mime, right? We had a backing track with drums. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's in, it's interesting. Like things that you guys taught me was something that I sort of took on in periods of New Birds when I was like, where are the musicians? Um, and you know, the show always goes on. Anyway, the show is going on at the moment with New Birds with Eri, who is the newest member of New Birds, um, on drums, and New Bird Chris and myself. So as a three piece.
And
So
there's a gig coming up, right?
there is a gig coming up, yeah, in a week and a half. Yeah, first gig
Okay.
in almost 10 years.
Okay. So 10 years, right? That's a
Yeah.
long time.
hmm
So why now?
Um, well, I suppose when I first started thinking about new birds in like at the end of 2025, um, and starting to sort of dig through old tracks that I had and think about like I sort of and I wrote a song and I went, well, that's a pretty good song. That I can group that with these other songs. And then maybe I've got an album. It's an 8-track album. And then once I had that, I was sort of just working on album, getting album out and seeing how that works in 2026 as opposed to the last time I put music out. Um, and I love Bandcamp. I think Bandcamp's really great, but I was wanting to just sort of expand a bit and go bigger and see if I could get the music out there on other platforms, things that I don't necessarily do, um, like Spotify and other streaming platforms. But I was like, I just want people to hear this and get this out. And so that was kind of the first focus. And the whole time I was sort of in the back of my mind thinking, some of these songs would be great to play live. They're really, especially the newer songs, they're really made to sound like a post-rock band. And that had been something that was sort of going around in my head for years now, thinking about, if I do New Birds live again, like it has to be different for me. I get bored so easily. It'd be great if it was just a noisy post-rock band. Every gig I'd go to that was a bit like that, I would really get kind of swept away in it and almost kind of emotional, going, I want to do that, but can never find a drummer. Um, it's just always ends up being me and Chris, which is fine. Chris is like the most amazing musician, um, and I adore working with him. But I was like, it would be really fun to work with a live drummer. So back in it was December 2025 was when I really started thinking about doing something live and putting feelers out. I remember standing outside. Um, Trail of Dead came to Melbourne very unexpectedly and did 2 shows, and I went to both of them. And I remember standing outside the gig and being in the gig and searching for drummers, hassling people like crazy, um, just with the goal of trying to make this a a proper all live thing. And that was really the goal. I was like, I'm not gonna do this unless it's a proper live band. Um, and it was pretty much a 6-month search, constant, like putting up ads on social media and asking, like reconnecting with every musician I've ever connected with, for which I really sincerely apologize to those people. Like just putting the feelers out, going to loads of gigs and talking to people and kind of reconnecting with um, the Melbourne band scene. And then eventually it just came down to an ad that that Eri answered, um, and just like it just worked out really well. It sort of it turned out that he was like he listened to the music and he was like it sort of almost like instantly a massive fan. Um, he mentioned the same kind of bands that I'm obsessed with at the moment, like Twilight Sad and Sonic Youth, lots of sort of noisy post-rock things. And then the first time the three of us played together, he just launched into one of the drum beats. And, it's so rare for me to work with drummers. Like I said, first time with New Birds. Um, Before that, I was in a post-rock band called Silent Decade that had a drummer. But it wasn't my music we were playing. It was like existing music. And then before that, we're talking like International Language of Mime days, the last time I worked with a drummer. So I'm not used to drummers and how they work, but just the fact that he played one of the drum beats and was like looking at me like, okay, are we ready to get into this? I was just like, yeah, this is the guy. He already knows the songs. Like that's the kind of level of stupid commitment I have, knowing the songs before you get to the rehearsal.
Yeah, you gotta know the songs before you get to the rehearsal. Yeah.
Yeah,
So learn the songs before you get to the rehearsal. Where was the ad that you found him?
it was on a Facebook group. I think you were hoping that I was going to say Mel Band, but
I'm curious as to how live music works in Melbourne these days
yeah,
because this is when I used to play in bands in Melbourne. I was about 25 years ago, probably nearly. And there was
yeah.
Beat and Impress and Mel Band and all that stuff, which presumably like that stuff doesn't. Is that stuff still around? Is any of that still around?
Well, Mel Band is gone, which I was horrified by when I was first trying to find a drummer because I was just like, well, how do Melbourne musicians do this? Um, but Beat is still going. Um, and Impress, I think, has evolved into the music. But they're sort of online things. The actual paper copy is a pretty different beast. But yeah, it was on yeah, just a Facebook group. I forget which one. In fact, because I put ads out on three different ones, like a general Melbourne musicians one, a shoegazy one, and another Melbourne musicians one. I'm not sure which one he actually saw me on, but yeah, it was like it really felt like the old analogy of three buses coming along at once. I had three answers in a very short space of time, um, that were um, very different answers. One was from a session guy who lived in Adelaide, who was well up for it, knew the songs, and he was like, I can step right into it and do that gig. But just like financially, it wasn't really feasible for me to fly him over. Um, and then another one from a guy who was really sweet and also really loved the music, but was like 3 hours away. And at that point, I was starting to kind of go, it's the same old thing. I'm never going to get a drummer. And then Eri just turns up, who's one of my favorite musicians I've ever played with. It's so great working with live New Birds in 2026. Both.
So there is a band which is cool.
Mm,
It's a three-piece band
yeah.
with you on guitar, I'm
Mm,
assuming.
yeah.
But I've heard some interesting things from you about this live show. It doesn't seem to me like any way that I've approached a gig in the past. Or it seems really interesting. So I wanted to ask, like, what can people expect from this show?
Yeah. It is interesting, and clearly, I've had years to think about this and plan it. And it comes from the idea of I didn't really want to. I wanted it to feel like progression since um, the last time I played, and it was very much that kind of similar model to how you and I had played in International Language of Mime days. Um, finding a venue, putting the lineup together, and then months of talking to bands and hassling people and chasing up people. And I wanted it to feel like New Birds had progressed from that. And one of the brainwaves I had was, well, what like it would be great to do this show just New Birds without any other bands. But how to make that happen because no one's going to go for that. It doesn't make sense to do that. So then I thought, well, maybe the support the support act could be me, um, because in my time as New Birds, there's been times when it's just been me, and it's just been me standing up there with backing tracks. But I was like, I could do this just like actually one like another connection with you and me. Our former drummer Ev, otherwise known as Pikelet, something that Pikelet does, or maybe under the name Ev, um, is more sort of piano improvisations, just going to a venue and there's a piano and just going for it. And I love the idea of that, but um, I haven't had enough experience at doing that myself. But I was like, maybe it could just be me sitting in front of a piano or like acoustic versions of New Bird songs. Um, so that started to sort of take shape as that being the support act is just Nathan Jones solo. Um, and in that section, sort of revisiting some older songs. Um, there's a couple of new songs as well that work quite well, solo acoustic. But there's a couple of international language of mime songs that sort of pop up. Um, I wanted to get some acoustic monk songs, which is my very first band in there, but I don't think I don't think the world's ready for acoustic monks yet. There's some last band songs, which is that was like the real start of New Birds. That was me and New Bird Ted. Um, and then once I sort of thought, well, that's the opening act. Um, and I used to sometimes think a really cool thing to do would be main band is on stage, main New Birds, and it fades away. There's like the last sort of guitar notes. The show that you and I did when you were being New Bird Dom, we ended with kind of guitar pedal loops. Um, and I was like, it'd be great to have that kind of thing, like a loop going, and then the loop becomes a drum beat, or a drum beat can go on top of it, kind of like beat mixing, I guess. The kind of thing that we were doing in Panic days, like DJing. And then it turns into like a DJ set. And so that was sort of my idea, like a three-act thing. And then that evolved into, well, why are people going to see me DJ? That seems weird. So it's now turned more into like, yes, that will probably happen. Um, but it will turn into sort of more the electronic version of New Birds, um, which is basically me and Chris mucking around on basically his collection of electronic gizmos and keyboards and drum machines and stuff, and tackling some of the more electronic New Bird songs, but also going into a bit more sort of improvisation kind of style, I guess. So yeah, it's now become like a three-act thing.
Okay,
Um,
so it's three acts. So
yeah,
that's and like three kind of quite different ways to sort of do music, right? Um,
yeah.
which do you enjoy the most? Do you have a different attitude to all those three kind of ways of doing music?
Um, I like them all in different ways. The solo acoustic part's kind of nice, because I really get to kind of like because it's just me and an instrument, I really get to kind of like live in my voice is like a sounds a bit pretentious, but I really get to kind of go for it with my voice. Um, like the piano is pretty like I don't feel that connected to the piano these days, despite that being my first instrument. Um, so it's all kind of about my voice, and there's moments of it where I really kind of get to let rip, um, which is different for me. So I'm enjoying that a bit. I've been really enjoying reworking New Bird songs, just solo acoustic. But I think at the moment, I think the live band is the thing that I'm really enjoying. That's the thing that makes me grin like a child when we're playing because it's like really connecting. It's really fun. I just simple things like I don't have to focus so much on the backing track, um, because Eri is a human and Chris is a human, and they're a absolutely amazing rhythm section. And just a couple of practices ago, I was kind of like the song sort of collapsed a bit because um, in my head, I knew where the song ends or changes into a different section, but the other two didn't because they didn't write it and it's newer for them. And I was sort of looking at them like, how do you not know this? And um, once we'd sort of stopped and we were talking about it, Chris was like, you can look at us, like you look at us and you give us a meaningful look. And I was like, I've totally forgotten that. Like that's how bands communicate when they're real humans and there's no backing tracks. You can just kind of go, oh, whoops, we missed that. We'll have to play for another two bars or whatever. And the audience don't really know. Um, but we're humans and we can work it out. Like that is something I'm really delighting in, being able to stretch out if we want to, if the song requires it, or do something slightly different. And it's just about those meaningful looks, which I'm really learning how to do again. Those kind of big eyes, Chris calls it big eyes.
That's the magic. That's
Yeah,
the magic. Um, or like, this guitar neck is a wonderful thing for telling someone when the song's about to finish.
right. I didn't know that. Okay, guitar neck.
Brilliant, brilliant.
Oh,
Uh,
in a kind of
yeah,
way.
yeah. It's like a running joke with me and some of the people that I play with. That like no one really has to know when the song finishes because at some point I'll go like that, and then yeah,
Nice.
fine. It's good. There you go, free tip.
That's
Um,
that's
thank
good.
you.
I'm just,
This I just wanted to ask one more question about this gig, right? Which is that
yeah,
like just the sheer amount of time you're on stage for. Like how long are you going to be playing for? And the thing that would terrify me, terrify, it's probably the wrong word, but like the thing I would struggle with is just learning or like being comfortable with that amount of material. Like how are you sort of approaching like just having that volume of stuff to do on the night?
yeah. It is a challenge. That's for sure. Um, yeah, because I had a bit of a practice yesterday when there was no one around. That was just the solo set and the main set, just me kind of playing along to recordings. Um, and I didn't even do the last song of the main set because I was really tired. Um, so yeah, I guess it's about sort of just keeping on practicing. I've always been one for whenever I've got a gig, I'm always pretty much rehearsing, um, if not with the band, then at home solo to rehearsal recordings or um, some of the songs sound sort of pretty similar to how they are on the album. Um, some of them are a bit different and mutated. Um, but yeah, the I think learning the lyrics has been a challenge, because I've never been that good at that. Like you would know that you've been in bands with me where like, I remember you and I in Sydney um, doing, I think it was an acoustic cover of The Cure's Love Song, and you getting very frustrated with me because I couldn't remember the lyrics. And yeah, that's always been a thing for me. I'm not great at learning lyrics, so like it's been quite an intense um, regime of in rehearsals, I've got the words in front of me, but like every day for the last few weeks, I've gone straight to pen and paper and with like the lyrics open on my computer and just written them out, keep on writing them out, keep on writing them out. And when I'm out and about doing stuff that doesn't require my brain, having the lyrics on my phone or something and just kind of going through them, testing myself, trying to understand connections between the words, getting really frustrated with the idiot who wrote them. Like there's some songs where there's five verses and they should all be different, that's fine. But like usually what people do is they keep the chorus the same. But no, not this guy. For some reason, like on a couple of songs, the chorus is different every time, which may have seemed like a great idea when I was writing it and recording it, but it is absolute murder at this point. I don't even know why I
Yeah,
did that.
yeah. Well, why did you do it?
I don't know. There's one song, All in Your Fantasy, that it was originally sort of quite an electronic song. One of the great things about this version of New Birds is that um, Chris and Eri are, as I said before, an amazing rhythm section, and they really love when I go, I've got this old electronic song. We need to cover it somehow and make it sound like us. And they're so good at doing that, which is really fun for me. But this song originally, it sort of goes from 6/4, then there's a couple of bars of 4/4. I think there's elements of 5/4. Um, it's all over the place. The lyrics jump around. And it's because like I wrote it on top of an existing song by someone else because I liked the rhythm of that song, which does all those things. And then I kind of had to fit my lyrics into that, got rid of their song and wrote new music over the top of it. And um, therefore, it's like a different song, but it has this very, very awkward rhythm to it because like it's me trying to fit my music on top of it. And we battled with it in the rehearsal studio for a bit before the other two were like, can we just like it wasn't that they were not capable of doing those time changes because they're really capable, but it was just complicated for no particularly good reason. Um, so we've made it a bit more simple. And also lyrically, I just kind of went, there's no reason why the lyrics did what they did on the recording. So I just kind of rewrote the lyrics into a verse that kind of makes sense that I can actually sing and remember. Made the chorus do that too. Um, so it's like, I guess we're doing like a remix of it now, or I don't know, a different version, but it's much better this way. It's also something I've missed, having collaborators who can push back when I'm trying to do something stupid.
No comment. Um, I am. I'm obviously lots of miles away, and I'm very sad that I can't see it. So this is potentially a loaded question. But uh, have you thought about recording the band versions of some of these sort of band arrangements of old songs or new songs, or just capturing that stuff?
Yeah, well, I'm definitely going to record the actual gig. I think it's really something that I want to have. Like I said earlier, I'm a huge New Birds fan. I want to have it. Um, but also, yeah, like being an expat, there are people. around the world who will probably want to see this. Like I had a message from my brother recently, um, saying he was really excited about it, but just really gutted he couldn't be there because he's in New Jersey. Um, so yeah, I'm definitely recording um, or filming the actual show. Um, as opposed, yeah, in terms of recording the audio for it, I'd love to do that. Um, I just, yeah, I don't really know how to go about that myself at the moment. Like the album was all sort of done at home. Um, one of the nice things, I guess, about having been on my own for so long is that I can just do that. I don't have to rely on anyone. Um, and I sort of like my home studio setup. Um, but it would be great to capture properly the sound of three-piece New Birds. So yeah, something to think about. I just have to figure out how.
Just get in the studio
Yeah, yeah, that's it.
if you can. Get a studio for a day, and yeah, yeah,
Well, hopefully we'll be
I'm sure
so well rehearsed that we can just smash through the songs in a day.
just bash them out. Just see how much you get done in a day. You can mix
Yeah,
it, get the time. You can get your tapes another time. You can even do your vocals at home, but like just get the drums recorded at least. Get as much as you
yeah,
can.
yeah. That's a good idea. There you go. Yeah, you heard it here, folks. Um, future plans for New Birds.
There you go. There you go. Well, I was going to ask. Also, first of all, I have no recollection of playing "Love Song" by The Cure in a band in a bar in Sydney. I remember playing in a bar in Sydney, but I don't remember doing that.
Yeah,
Um,
we definitely did. But I think either we did or we started rehearsing it, and then it may have been the time that we decided to do Chop Suey by System of a
oh,
Down instead.
that I remember. That I
Um,
remember.
yeah, it may have been like rehearsals, and it didn't get to the live stage because some idiot couldn't remember the words to one of my favorite Cure songs of all time.
Do you know that when Robert Smith plays it live now, he sings different words? So maybe in a way, you inspired Robert Smith to not remember the words to Love Song, and that's why he sings different words.
Does he purposely sing different words, or is he getting them wrong?
He purposely sings different words, I think,
Interesting.
in the
Um,
chorus.
and has he done that for a while? Because I've got some probably recent versions of that song that he's done.
He has done that at least for a few years because he definitely did that at the last gig that I was at, which was
Hmm.
maybe about 4 years ago.
I'll have to check them out. I doubt that I would even notice, to be honest. I'm not.
Because famously, we don't know the words.
I don't know the
So
words.
you've established.
Yeah,
It's wasted
but
on you.
yeah, but also I'm not a big lyrics guy. Um, like sometimes when I look at lyrics, which I try to do, especially with like a new album that I'm excited about, or even an album I'm excited about. Like I try to do the thing I used to do when I was a kid, sit there with the lyrics if it has lyrics and go through it. Um, and like, yeah, I remember when in 2009 when Michael Jackson died, we got some old Michael Jackson albums, and I remember sitting there with the lyrics and just going, "He sings what? That's weird. What is wrong with the guy's diction?" Like I love being really surprised by lyrics because I never pay attention to them when I'm listening to them. It's all about the music for me.
So yeah, yeah. But that's quite cool because then you're creating your own versions, right? You're creating your own narratives. That's
You know,
quite a good thing about music, I think.
yeah, it can be. It can be frustrating to other people, like bandmates or my wife when when I try to sing along with stuff and she's just like, "Do you even know that song?"
But
No.
don't you think that like, and this relates to something that you said to me the other day, don't you think that like that's something amazing about music is that you can bring your own sort of interpretation to it. Like you don't, and I will give context for this because one of the questions you wanted me to ask you was, what do you want people to know about New Birds when they listen, or something to
Mm,
that effect? And I refuse to ask you that because I think there's a real magic in bringing your own thing to it. Actually, like when I listen to a band, not necessarily knowing what the singers or the lyricist has written, but do you know
mm.
what I mean? Bringing your own kind of interpretation to it, not
Yeah,
necessarily about like what the person was thinking about, but actually what it means to you in your life, etc.
yeah, that is true. Yeah, it is like there's definitely a lot of magic in your own understanding of what someone's art is. So yeah, I'm glad you didn't ask that question. It's a terrible question.
Um, Good. Well done, me, for being stubborn.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of my best qualities. That's what my wife always says. Uh, so I just want to ask. I want to go. I want to just look back and I want to look forward. But what? So we talked earlier about how this is the first gig you guys have done, or you've done in like 10 years or something. What happened at the last gig? Is there a story there related to why you stopped playing music for so long?
Um, yeah, I guess there was a few things that happened. In 2016, it was it was me and Newbird Chris um, playing with lots of backing tracks and like getting to the point where we sounded really good. Um, there was a few songs that he was just like he'd reinterpreted with his drum machines and keyboards and stuff. Um, and at literally our last gig, um, so it was kind of like April, May 2016. 2016 was a really tough year. Um, like David Bowie died in January, which really shook me. Um, being a huge Bowie fan, like there he is, there's Bowie there. Um, so yeah, that really shook me, um, and I felt like a little bit lost. But we had some gigs planned anyway. I remember doing a cover of "Be My Wife" at a Newbird solo gig, um, and it being the first time that I was like visibly shaken. Um, if you want to see it, it's on YouTube. Um, and just when you allow yourself to feel the emotion, like it can be great, but also like I'm aware watching it, and I haven't watched it for a while, but I'm aware that it's a person who is struggling and getting a bit tired and just bogged down with stuff. It was just definitely becoming really hard. That version of New Birds had been sort of playing for about a year or so, um, and doing a pretty great job of just kind of battling on despite changes. Um, Newbird Dave had left and gone back to England. Newbird Ted resigned pretty much the day after, and I was still just stubbornly going, I'm just going on. Um, you joined me for a gig, which was great, and that really kind of made me start to think that like the band just goes on. Whatever happens, it goes on. If it's me solo, me with collaborators, then the band goes on. And then Chris joined, who was a great kind of rock to cling on to. Um, our last gig at Catfish, I remember like it's the best that we'd ever sounded. Me and Chris often talk about how like that was the best version of New Birds. We had some new songs that were really powerful. Um, we just were working really well with each other. I remember looking out into the audience, um, which was at that point like at the start of the show, it was the door person, the person behind the bar, and the sound person. And I was just like, everyone has gigs like that. Every every band
Yeah.
biography has gigs like that, but it just I think that like that was too much at that point. I just kind of went, I've worked too hard to do this, and my own mental health just couldn't really kind of take that. There was no gigs booked afterwards, and I just it's not like I cancelled anything, but I just didn't book any gigs. Um, and then very soon after, that's when my mum passed away, which also just was kind of like a bit of a weight, obviously. Um, and the songs just like one of the songs that we did, 86 to 88, which is like I sort of talk about that song a bit like in terms of Brian Wilson's Smile, not that it's comparable um artistically um or significantly, but for me it was kind of like that. It was a hard song to write. Um it's really complex. Um and it seemed like no one really was interested in it. Chris was always a huge fan, and but you know, ultimately, sometimes it has to be about more than just one guy saying this is a great song. Um, and so that sort of came became a bit of a I don't know, a bit of a burden also, the sort of thought that I'd killed myself to write this powerful song um that I really felt like people should hear, and like no one heard it. Um, and so yeah, that was kind of bugging me, and it like a lot of stuff that I was working on at the time just um again, not like it got cancelled, it just didn't progress. There's a whole bunch of songs from that time that just sort of stayed unfinished. Um, and the fact that they were unfinished just really bothered me. Sometimes I'd go back and listen, and it would be painful listening to them, like it was a reminder of failure. Um, which, that started to sort of heal a bit when in lockdown, when I was talking to Royston and revisiting some of those songs, um, and thinking more about just finishing them. And it's like, who cares about the audience? Just finish the songs, figure out what to do with them after. Um, so yeah, that's what happened at that last gig. Just a whole bunch of things that just weighed me down. And
Yeah.
didn't, yeah.
I mean, yeah, I get that. That's pretty, like, yeah, it's pretty heavy stuff to go through, I think, and quite tough stuff, I think. Um, but it's really great. It's heartening to hear this, this sort of return of new birds, and the way that you're kind of approaching it, I think is really
Mm.
cool. That's really inspiring. So I so what's next? What's next for new birds?
Well, I think, and like because of that, like because of simple things like with that last gig, there was no gig booked afterwards. I think for me, I always have to have something to work on. Um, I notice I kind of have ups and downs of um, like little glimpses of audience out there, because it seems like with this version of New Birds, it is connecting more than it has in the past. Um, I see people are listening to the songs out there. I see people interacting more on Instagram and stuff like that. Um, so like those little things kind of lift me occasionally. Um, but I think it's like for me, there has to be kind of continuous momentum. So Um, like I would hate um, for this gig to come and go with no gig booked. I think that would be like a real devastating thing for me mentally. Um, so like one of my big jobs in the next week and a half is to figure out with the rest of the band when's a good time to put the next show on and what that looks like. Um, because like you said, doing a gig in this particular way, with the three act thing, it is, I think it is pretty unusual for an unsigned band. Amazing. Um, Pretty unusual and sort of unique, but like where do you go from here? Again, I don't really want to go back to the old model of um having to um book bands and book the lineup. I want it to be like to feel like it's progressing. Um, I always have sort of big, lofty ambition. Um, so it's about yeah, working out what that is and how to do it. Um, and you know, a lot of the last 6 months has been me putting feelers out, sending out emails, hassling people. So I'm sort of hoping that some of those things will connect. Um, I think it would be nice to like maybe not a three act show, but to continue doing some sort of version of that, like solo act and then main band or main band and electronic version. Um, Also, it's going to look quite sort of different from other shows. Like I've already spoken to the lighting guy and said no lights, and he was like, "Great, makes my life easier." But I've been like working on a projection that goes on us, um, kind of going back to that old Velvet Underground idea of what they used to do, but also kind of like um, the last New Birds video that is um, me singing with projections of younger me from International Language of Mime days projected on top of me. Um, so yeah, whatever's next, it has to be sort of feel like it's progressing. I don't ever want to feel like I'm stepping backwards. Um, but yeah, it's about what that is. It's a question mark at the moment.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot to think about, isn't there? But I suppose then this is probably quite a good point to finish on to ask my last question. And like, there have been a lot of kind of highs and lows over the years, and like, whether you depend, you count New Birds from starting at a certain point, or possibly actually it's part of a bigger musical journey. But whichever
Mm,
way you look at it, there's obviously a lot of highs and lows, a lot of like stuff you've had to deal with, a lot of setbacks along the way. Um, and you talked about your last show, and to be honest, like gigs like that have made me stop playing my own music.
mm.
And so it's sort of quite. I totally get where you're coming from, but I guess the question is, I suppose, why do you keep coming back to New Birth? Like, how is it? Why does it endure?
Um, I think I can't help myself. Um, like in the sort of big period away, every gig I'd go to, I would I would think about it and sort of like it's that little kid dream of like looking up at the stage and going, I can see myself up there. I still do that all the time. I sort of imagine what I would do in those circumstances. I can't help but write music. I can't help but like cover people's music and reinterpret it. Um, like a tool that's been quite useful this time around is this app that I use that uses AI technology to separate the parts of songs, which is Like that is some crazy technology. I remember going into a music store years ago and saying, "Is there a thing that can do that?" And the guy just laughed me out of the shop and described it as it's like baking a cake. You can't, once you've baked a cake, you can't get the ingredients out again. Well, in 2026 you can, and like it is mind blowing, and it really has um, sort of made me more aware of other people's music, how it works, and really got me sort of completely back to being obsessed with music again. Been very helpful for working out Newbird songs as well, that I've had to work out exactly how to play them again. Um, because not only can the apps separate the songs, it works out the chords and the lyrics for you as well. It's crazy times. I forget your original question. Oh, what keeps me
Well,
coming back to?
yeah.
Yeah, I can't help myself, basically. I just ultimately love doing it. And yeah, in those times away, like anytime I'm sort of near my guitar or it's something that feels like performing on stage, um, I'm kind of like, oh yeah, this is it. This is the thing. Or making music or talking to musicians. It's all of those things that sort of reminds me why it is and how much I'm obsessed of doing it.
Amazing. Thanks, Nath.
Thanks, Dom.
That's the end.
The end.
The end.